1, 2, 3. Just testing the sound. We going again? Okay, councillors, we're just doing a test, audio and visual. 1, 2, 3. Just testing before the meeting.
Mr. Mayor, can I just get everyone to check their mics on and speak in, or don't have to speak in, but when we do, it's critical for our live streaming. Councillor.
Let's go. Okay, thank you, councillors. I'd like to declare the ordinary meeting for Blayney Shire Council for August open, and thank you all very much for your attendance. And in opening this meeting, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custom land on which we meet here this evening, the Wiradjuri people, and pay my respects to their elders, both past, present and emerging. Councillors, as you know, this meeting is being live streamed, and for those members in the gallery, you may be recorded as part of these proceedings here this evening. Apologies, I believe everybody is accounted for, so there's no apologies, Mr. GM, this evening. Disclosures of interest. Do we have any disclosures of interest for the business here this evening?
Mr. Mayor, I've got no disclosures so far. No
disclosures, thank you. Councillors, we do have a public forum, and I'd like to acknowledge everyone in the gallery this evening to come and join us. It's lovely to see you. I'd like to invite Stefan to come to the lectern. He's going to speak in regards to item 8, minutes of the Traffic Committee meeting. Stefan, would you like to come up to the lectern? Approximately 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when your time is up. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the Council. My name's Stephen Bamilli. I am a resident of the local area. I'm currently living at 750 Nyesgate Road in Greghamstown. I've got to give a little apology. Originally, when I sent a letter of certain points regarding the rally that was proposed for our area, I put my address as 750 Greghamstown and not 750 Nyesgate Road. So if anyone looked up my address, it looked like I was outside of the area, not directly related to the proposed race. So I thought I'd come along and just say a couple of words, just to put a different perspective on what you've been told by the organisers so far. And I can see, after having a few discussions with some of the members, that I can see that things look very rosy from the organisers' perspective. I received a letter in the mail basically saying that this race was going ahead on the 23rd of September, which was news to me. Wasn't a map of the race or any other information that came along with it. I then proceeded to contact the phone number that was on the letter for the public liaison officer. I'm still waiting for a return phone call, and that was 3 weeks ago. In regards to public knowledge, I then rang a couple of my neighbours. Also, they hadn't received any information on the matter either. And more importantly, any of the farms around us whose livelihood depends on it. Even yesterday I spoke to Kyle, the farmer across the road from me on the racetrack. He didn't know about it at all, and he's got a lot of cattle going into lambing season that time of the year. So I think from a public scrutiny point of view, or at least to get public feedback on the idea, has been non-existent from the organisers' point of view. Now, I just want to play devil's advocate a little bit on this, and to be honest, after I was told, I couldn't get a good night's sleep for about 3 weeks, because every time when I drive home, because I live in an area where I know there's going to be kids riding bikes, I know there's going to be people walking their dogs, there's push bikes, there's people riding horses. The speed limit is 100 kilometres an hour on the dirt roads, and there's nothing the police can do about that. Now, the police don't control these roads, they don't patrol them. So I think there's a huge danger. Let's just say it's an awesome event, it hits the social media, and I have sort of looked at the social media behind this a little bit, where they really they put a positive spin on what fantastic track it is, the corners, and there's a lot of crests, there's a lot of blind corners that you cannot see around. And once it's in the social media, everybody, rally driver in the area or around the state, will want to come and check it out. And I couldn't get the picture of my daughter walking the dog with a rally car coming over that blind crest near our house. And there's nothing, there's no risk mitigation that can stop that. There's no planning, it doesn't matter what okay you get from departments or the police or whatever, you can't mitigate those risks. Now, I'm really grateful that they withdrew that section of the race, but my concern is if it becomes an annual thing that we've got to go through, that this keeps popping up, where that risk could happen, it's not worth it. I think if you did a risk-benefit analysis of the situation, you'd fall short every time. Now, I can't speak on now that they've withdrawn that, it doesn't directly impact me, but the other sections of the race are still there. I don't know how that will impact the residents that live there. I don't know them personally, but all I can ask is that do the consultation, make sure everybody knows, get it out in the open, and then formulate a plan, because I don't want to hold the area back, and you've got a really tough job as councillors to ensure that you make the decisions on everyone's behalf for the betterment of the community, keeping risks in mind. And we're not talking about little risks, like it's life and death, like to me, because I know families that live there, I know who's got kids, I know where the animals are, I know where the gates are for the stock routes that they take for the farmers, and you drive accordingly. But if you get every rally driver in the country wanting to test out their new WRX, it's just going to be a disaster. So, as I said, I don't know how that applies to the other, like Cashin's Lane or Mount Macquarie. I don't know what farms there are, I don't know what residents there are. But just a different perspective on the risk mitigation for that on the day, because there's so much outside that scope, let alone if something goes wrong, if a car drives through a fence, who's liable for it, who's going to keep the upgrades to the road because of the wear and tear from the extra traffic that's going to cause. That's all, they're all decisions you have to, think about moving into this, which I'm sure you can. I think a lot of you have been blindsided by this too, because you were sort of approached out of nowhere with the risk, with the race being only a few weeks away, and having to make this decision on the run is not fair either for you guys. And that's all I've got to say tonight. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Stefan,
No
for
problem.
coming in this evening and making the presentation. Thank you. Absolutely, Andrew, please. Yes, I'm sure councillors would be more than happy to hear your presentation.
Yeah, there's no issue. Andrew, you did email in withdrawing that, did you not?
I thought I'd...
Just a point of clarification.
sorry,
was
I
there...
don't think I did. Sorry, but you could check.
it's no issue. I think there was email communication last week. That's all. That was my understanding. Which
Error, it's probably on my...
No,
on my part.
no problem, Andrew. Please welcome, approximately five minutes, and I imagine you also will be talking to item 8.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, thank you.
To item 8, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you regarding the high-speed rally proposed for September. I agree with the points my neighbour Stefan Bamili has raised and would like to add to them, please. I speak on behalf of a number of residents and farmers of Bentley's Lane and some of the other roads that would have been affected by this proposed high-speed car rally. We would like to point out that we feel we are reasonable people and that our objections were valid. Furthermore, we wanted on record that nothing of this sort should be considered in future without a consultation. We do this for the following reasons. Firstly, inadequate consultation, information and transparency has meant that residents and users of this area were unaware of the event or so inconvenienced that it is a safety issue. Secondly, this area is totally unsuitable. The roads in question are used for farming activities, some are even travelling stock routes, with livestock, calving, lambing all taking place. Also, walking, bike riding, concealed driveways, blind corners, blind crests, loose surfaces, narrow bridges, houses in close proximity, etc., all make rally driving incompatible. Our roads are not a rally track. This point is made graver by the fact that outside of the rally time, the organisers' efforts to mitigate these risks are diminished. The truth is that an event of this type is not just one day. I have personal experience with rallying, but for those unfamiliar with it, a recce is standard for drivers to do where they visit the route to familiarise themselves with the course. These may or may not be done at competition speeds, but even if they're within the speed limit, they can still be very unsafe for a road not closed. Pace notes are highly detailed instructions read by the co-driver to allow the driver to anticipate the road so they can travel at very high speeds. They do not take into account hazards like stock, pedestrians, bicycles, etc. Pace notes can then be sold on by drivers or the organisers. You can just look on Facebook, you can see them for sale there. Enabling anyone to travel on these roads at dangerous speeds using pace notes. Our roads should not be a rally track. Furthermore, this community is made up of farming businesses that would have been impacted by this high-speed rally and its associated problems. Would a hobby driver from St Ives really think through what happens if they spin out on a corner and take out a fence? What about the stock that is then on the road? Is the farmer then liable for any accidents the stock causes? Quite apart from the expense and the time required of the farmer to fix the fence. Like I said, our roads are not a rally track. In addition, one of the well-known challenges faced by people living in these more isolated homes is security. Rural crime, notably the theft of farm equipment, is on the rise, and an event like this introduces large numbers of people unnecessarily to vulnerable homes and farms. You may be wondering why I'm going on about this event when it is not going ahead. My concern is that it seems to have been considered so lightly, without consultation with those directly affected. There is talk that this is an annual event. It is vital that the roads that were to make up the Greganstown section of the rally are never considered for inclusion in an event like this. A more suitable location is needed, and our roads are not a rally track. Finally, I'd like to thank Council for advocating for us in this matter. Such things should not be thrust on councils and residents. Instead, the event organisers should be researching suitable locations, and if they do try to dump something like this on a community, it is up to the residents and council to work together to support the interests of those potentially impacted. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for that presentation. I believe that does now conclude our public forum. Sorry about that mix-up, Andrew. Okay, thank you, councillors. That concludes our public forum. Now draw your attention to item 1, page 5, minutes of the previous council meeting held the 18th of July 2023. Can I have a mover that is a true record? Councillor Goswich has moved that way to a seconder. Councillor Reynolds, I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Councillors, any matters arising from these minutes? Councillor Newstead.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. During the previous meeting, while discussing an agenda item, I used a word that probably wasn't appropriate, and wasn't appropriate. So I'd just like to apologise for that, and to anybody that might have taken offence to the word that I used. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newstead. Councillors, any other matters arising from these minutes? If not, that's great. We'll move through to item 2, page 13. Questions taken on notice at the previous council meetings. Recommendation there, councillors. Do I have a mover for this recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Price-Jones has moved that way. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillors, questions or comments in regards to this item? Everyone, Councillor Reynolds, have you got a question?
A quick comment. The first two questions, just for the community, anyone reading the minutes, have been moved to September. So hopefully by September's workshop we'll have some reports back on those couple of items.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillors, any further questions or comments in regards to this report? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Page 15, item 3, Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference 2023. Recommendations there 1 and 2. Councillors, do have a mover for these recommendations, and I guess at this stage, because there's a little bit up in the air about people's availability and whether they will be attending this conference in another capacity, I'm suggesting that we potentially move this recommendation, fill those spots as people become more aware of their time. Or would councillors like to actually put forward people now? Before I put the motion, Councillor Somerville.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I was going to suggest that Deputy Mayor be deleted from paragraph 2, because I will certainly be going to the conference as chair of Central Tablelands Water. Whether I'm Deputy Mayor or not, or another councillor, I don't need to be included in this motion.
Okay, thank you. So I might move this motion so we can make that amendment. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Newstead. So, as a mover and the seconder, Councillor Newstead, are you happy with the deletion of Deputy Mayor from item 2? Thank you. Lauren's just doing the job there for us. So, councillors, in regards to that now obviously available 2 other positions, I'm pretty keen that anyone who really wants to attend should have the opportunity to attend.
The Mayor, I was just going to suggest we add the Mayor and 2 other councillors as a further amendment.
To be determined.
So
Councillors happy with that? As the mover, I'm more than happy with that. The seconder, are you happy with that? Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. This is a way to do amendments with the consent of the mover and seconder. Councillors, any questions or comments? Are we all comfortable with this? Gives us a bit of flexibility because Councillor Reynolds may or may not be representing Upper Macquarie, and I know he'd certainly like to attend, and I'm sure there's some other councillors that, given the opportunity in their diaries, would like to attend as well. Okay, councillors, so we have okay, while we're making amendments, the General Manager's just mentioned that we should have of 2 other maybe of 2 councillors and any other, with the means being that anyone who would like to attend should be able to attend, and we can use the councillor professional development budget if that was the case. Saying that though, the accommodation is pretty tight. 2 councillors and any other.
Mr Mayor, what about just the Mayor and other councillors?
Okay, there we go. I think we're getting the intent here, councillors. Yep, and the main thing is time, because I know everyone's got conflicting schedules and a fair bit on. So, but like I said, the philosophy is I'd really like councillors who really would like to attend to have the opportunity. It's a significant professional development opportunity in the life of a councillor. Okay, so the amendment, again, I'll just confirm with my seconder, Councillor Newstead. Happy to accept those amendments. Thank you. It's up on the screen, councillors. Any further questions or comments? Is everyone happy with the intent? Yep. Okay. We have a mover, we have a seconder. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Move now through to page 17. Item 4, Report of Council Investments as at the 31st of July. Recommendations there 1 and 2. Councillors, do have a mover for these recommendations. Councillor Goswich has moved that way. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Price-Jones has seconded that. Councillors, questions or comments in regards to the Council's investment position? Councillor Reynolds.
Mr Mayor, just a correction on page 21. There's a table, summary of restricted, allocated and unrestricted cash and investments. On the right-hand side, we've got the forecast to the 30th of June 2024. The third item down says $26,366,000. That figure should be $15,288,000. If you do the mathematics either side, that's what it comes up. So and given that this will be repeated on a monthly basis, you might as well correct it now so that, as in the business paper moving forward, that it is the correct amount.
Okay, I see Councillor Reynolds. Happy? Yep, thank you, Councillor Reynolds. We'll certainly make that amendment. Councillors, any further questions or comments? Councillor Reynolds?
I was just going to comment, as in the financial position we're in, and if most people looked at it, that over $29,600,000, they go, this council's in a very good position. But when you actually look at restricted, as in where we finished at the end of June and even at the end of July, most of that, if not all of that money, is restricted. There may be a bit of unrestricted as of July, given there was one payment, I believe, of $1 million that could be counted as unrestricted. But it's all tied, as in it's tied to projects such as road projects or footpaths in the Shire and other buildings, toilet blocks, etc. And so we can't use it for other purposes, and has to be used in a lot of that money has to either be used for that or the sewage fund, etc. So while it looks a good figure, there's not actually a lot of money there that's available to council to actually undertake further projects outside of the next 2 years. So I think that's important to highlight to the community, because if we proceed with the special rate variation down the track, as in the comments are going to be, you've got $29+ million sitting there, as in why do you need this extra money? And I'm sure we will explain it as we potentially move forward with that. But just to highlight that while it looks good and it's earning us a pretty good amount of interest, as in I think over $100,000 a month now on average, it's a bit deceptive of how much money this council actually does have that it can use moving forward. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. It is a very, very good point, and as we all know, that number will deteriorate certainly over the next 2 years as that money is allocated, as you say, to identified projects and activities. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillors, any further questions or comments in regards to this report? No, everyone's happy enough. We have a mover, we have a seconder. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Council's now move through to page 23. Item 5, recognition of rural fire services assets guideline. The recommendation there. Do I have a mover for this recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Somervale has moved that way. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Reynolds. Thank you. Questions or comments in regards to this item? Make sense? Councillor Somerville.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in moving this, I'd like to say that I'm pleased we are moving to do this, not only because it will avoid us getting a qualification to our financial statements, or at least on this ground, but I frankly think that until the state government amends the Rural Fires Act, I think this is probably the correct treatment. Now, last year we joined in the protest, and I think that was listened to, but I don't think it's had much effect so far. So I think the fact is that we were going to have to take on board this year, what was it, an extra 100 and something or other thousand, 184,000 in depreciation because of this resolution. But I think the fact is that it is the correct thing to do. It simply will reinforce the position of our sustainability on some of the ratios which take into account depreciation.
Very good point, Councillor Somerville. Thank you for that. I certainly agree. Yes, tricky subject. Councillors, any further questions or comments? I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Councillors, now draw your attention to page 31, item 6, review of the agency information guide. There's a recommendation there. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Ewan. Let's move that way. Councillor Newstead has seconded it. Councillors, any comments or questions in regards to the review of the agency information guide? Fairly important document. Everyone happy? Excellent. Good to see nodding. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. The councillors now move through to page 47, item 7, the Infrastructure Services Monthly Report. Recommendation there to note this report. Do I have a mover for this recommendation? Thank you. Councillor Reynolds has moved that way. Councillor Somerville has seconded it. Councillors, questions, comments, infrastructure report. Always makes for good reading. Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I drove through Millthorpe tonight on my way to the council meeting, and it's fantastic to see we're on the final leg of the footpath loop, so Elliott Street through Park Street and around to Glenorrey. We're just about there. We're doing, as in the council's started the formatting on the ramp across and actually reducing the road, so it'll actually make it a bit safer to come across Elliott Street for pedestrians. And it's the feedback I've had so far is fantastic, and the amount of people, particularly the Glenorrey Road, but coming back around through Park Street and down Elliott Street, as in and when it's finished, which is hopefully literally only a few days away, that it'll be a fantastic asset, and that comes on top of other footpaths. And had the opportunity today to have a look at the Belubula River footpath walkway. Again, fantastic facility with both the raised and also the concrete path, and again, a lot of our younger people, I understand, are actually, and I've actually observed personally myself, are actually using that footpath and walkway to go down to the Belubula River, particularly the raised part. So again, all sections of the community starting to use what is quite an expanded footpath network. But just thought I'd highlight that that footpath in Millthorpe is close to completion. And I suppose a question through, which I think has been partially answered here, to the director with regard to Newbridge and the footpath from the showground down to the centre of the village, a contractor. So the question is in any starting date yet, or I think it's labelled the end of the month. Is that still sort of, have we got a confirmation of when the contractor will start?
Mr. Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have an exact date yet.
fairly soon, I'd suggest. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillors, any other questions or comments? Councillor Somerville.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'll just comment on one thing, the Belubula River Walk Stage 3. I've had a few members of the public querying the notice which is near the bridge there, which tells pedestrians they're not allowed to use the ramps down onto the grassed area. But what I want to draw any listener's attention to is the fact that we are now putting in compliant pedestrian ramps, so that in fact pedestrians will be able to get onto the grass without having to jump down, because we will have compliant ramps.
Excellent. Absolutely. It is a very attractive facility there now, and I would just like to pick up Councillor Reynolds' comments around the footpaths. It's been a wonderful job by our staff. It's been quite a difficult job. That footpath, a lot of services in the ground across the front of a lot of residents, and it's done very quickly, I thought. I mean, the weather was wonderful, but as Councillor Reynolds says, very well received by the community out there, as all our footpath upgrades has been, especially the Belubula River Walkway. Councillors, we're still on the Director's report. Is there any other further questions or comments? Pretty good? Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Against? Declared carried. Now move through to page 52, item 8, minutes of the Traffic Committee meeting held the 4th of August. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 recommendations there. This was the subject of the 2 public forums that we heard earlier this evening. I have a mover for these recommendations. Councillor Price-Jones has moved that way. Do I have a seconder? Have a seconder anywhere in the room? Councillor Ewan has seconded that. Councillors, questions or comments in regards to the minutes of the Traffic Committee? Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I follow on from our public gallery, the 2 speakers we had tonight. So this is item number 2. A couple of questions through to the Director. I noted the rally routes that are still going ahead, particularly Mount Macquarie Road, I think it's termed, but also Fell Timber, but in particular close to Carcoar. In looking at Google Maps, there's probably at least 6 and maybe up to 8 residents in close proximity there. So going on, or given what was said tonight with regard to the Greghamstown loop, do we know if those residents have actually been communicated with and whether there's been follow-up through? I don't know the answer. I'm just wondering, is there any way we can ascertain that those 8 residents are actually aware that a rally will possibly take place in about 5 weeks' time?
Thank you. Councillor Reynolds, Mr. Director.
Through Mr. Mayor, yes, the event organiser has been providing us progressively with information regarding their face-to-face communication, and some of the information they provide us, I'm unsure how they would obtain it without speaking to these residents. In Mount Macquarie Road in particular, they've approached and spoken to 8 residences, which includes Central Tablelands Water. There's 3 that they were not home, so they've left letters there. I will note that those roads in particular, Fell Timber Road and Mount Macquarie Road, Council approved those roads last year with the classic Outback Trial Rally, and Council received no complaints or issues.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Councillor Reynolds.
A second question, just on observations on the route with regard to Dungeon Road. Part of the proposed routes in Cabonshire, I'm just wondering, have we or who's responsible for notifying Cabonshire about, or have they been notified? They may well have been, for that section of the My microphone stopped working back again. That section of the route that I think it finishes in Cabon Shire. So is Cabon aware of the rally, or have the organisers been in communication with them?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, so it's the applicant's responsibility to contact those councils. In regard to Cabon, their staff are aware. They haven't had formal approval yet, but they've been working the same process they have with us. And I believe Bathurst are a bit further progressed as there's stages in their shire as well.
Councillor
I'll just say one other note, as in I did have a discussion with one of the Oberon councillors about the rally in Oberon. Generally it was a positive feedback, so as in this was the previous route of the rally was in it was generally well received. The biggest difference to note was it was mostly in pine forest, as in either cleared or high standing pine forest, and I have also noted, as in with Mount Macquarie, as in there's some pine forest in Blayney Shire, but in Bathurst Regional Council, outside of I think it's Cashin's Lane, most of the rally route is actually in pine forest. So there is a bit of a difference in within Blayney Shire, that there are a number of residents. Hence my earlier question on just to make sure that all residents in those route areas were aware. To the best of council's knowledge, and again, we can only take the rally organisers on fact that the route was, that they were aware that this potential rally was taking place in late September. I think I'll leave it there, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Price-Jones.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a couple of comments around the situation. I'm really disappointed with the community consultation from the organiser. I think that we've left way too much in their hands to go about their business in however they wanted to. I've been in communication with Carcoar Dam Road residences. They turned up at State Water on Saturday afternoon. That's the first contact they'd had. For everyone else's knowledge, I understand that the road from the one driveway, which is close to the dam entrance, right through to the other side of the dam wall, is actually owned by State Water, and they need to give approval, so it's pretty late in the day to be requesting approval from them. Other residences either weren't home, they haven't been contacted, or they've had a note nailed to their fence or whatever, and I don't think that constitutes consultation. So I'm really disappointed with the process. As I said, I think that's probably all I need to say, but I just think that we need to take note. We're all sitting in the hot seat today, and I think we can do better.
Thank you, Councillor Price-Jones. If I can just say, I totally agree with you, and in regards to last week, I'd like to acknowledge and thank my fellow councillors who were involved in receiving representation from the community, and I'd also like to acknowledge the work that our General Manager and Director of Infrastructure did. They dropped everything to resolve this issue, and I'd also like to acknowledge the proponents or the event organisers in their willingness to acknowledge the inappropriateness of that route in particular. I have taken the opportunity on your behalf to invite the organisers to a council workshop. As it was expressed today or this evening at the public forum, as Councillor Reynolds and Councillor Price-Jones has reinforced, there are a lot of issues in growing or expanding or continuing this type of event in our shire. We would like to have more of a strategic view of it, a bigger picture. I believe the organisers would like to grow it, but we need to have more of a strategic plan, especially, again, as highlighted by Councillor Price-Jones, the community consultation piece. So we'll look forward to that further engagement. If they'd like to grow and continue to operate in this shire, we need to make sure that we are working very, very closely with them and with our community, and we'll look forward to hearing their presentations later in the year at a council workshop. Okay, councillors, we're still on the minutes of the Traffic Committee. We have a mover, we have a seconder. Councillor Somervale, you have the
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to think that we should thank and compliment our two public speakers tonight. I mean, they didn't really need to come. The Greganstown section has been removed from the valley, but they took the trouble to draw our attention to some of the shortcomings of the process, which is pretty useful to know. So I think we should thank them for taking the trouble of turning up and telling us about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Councillor Somerville. Okay, councillors, we're still on the minutes of the Councillor Newstead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just on number 4 there, I'd just like to clarify something with the Director, if I could. I noticed today that the traffic monitoring device had been put in up at the top of the hill. Well, didn't we decide we were going to put some at the bottom of the hill too, to kind of correlate the difference in the speed coming down that hill? Is there another set going in, Mr Director?
Thank you, Mr Director.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, that'll still occur. We had one set of traffic counters available, and so it'll be good to provide that data initially to the basic data that New South Wales Police have requested, and then we can later, when 2 become available, reinstall 2 counters to see the impact of the hill.
Yeah, just so as the other councillors may not know, we've got a business owner there who says there's a lot of speeding, and we're just trying to figure out. We've had counters on there before, it wasn't too bad, but he still says it's a lot of speeding, so we're just going to have it at the top and the bottom, because you do pick up quite a bit of speed coming down that hill. So anyway, that's all. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Newstead. Okay, councillors, still on the minutes of the Traffic Committee. Any further questions or comments? I have a mover, I have a seconder. If there's no other questions or comments, I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. Councillors, now move through to page 56, item 9, Plan of Management, 27 Victoria Street, Millthorpe. Recommendation there. Do I have a mover for this recommendation? Councillor Goswich has moved that way. Councillor Somerville has seconded that. Councillors, questions or comments? Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to congratulate the Director for Planning for coming up with this plan of management. The consultation process was fantastic, and I think we've come up with a plan of management as council that takes into consideration the community concerns, and also allows the proponent to utilise the veranda, which is a fantastic large veranda, for his business with his accommodation business. So I think overall we've come to a very good plan of management that's not overly long. It's, I think, about 3 pages, but answers all the concerns, and hopefully makes life in a mixed zone, and that's the challenge, because you've got residential and you've got businesses in the village zone all together. So I'd just like to congratulate the Director for coming up with a very good document that hopefully will make sure that all parties are accommodated for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds, and I think it's probably fair to say that the proponent and the community had some input as well into that document, so it was a collaborative effort. What is a significant and growing business within that community, so it is important that they have the opportunity to be able to develop that business in a safe and minimum impact on the neighbours. Okay. Councillors, any further questions or comments? I have a mover in Councillor Goswich, seconder in Councillor Somerville. I'll put the motion. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Declared carried. A call for division. Let the minutes show that it was unanimous. Okay, councillors, and that brings us to the conclusion of our meeting. So I'd like to thank you all very much for your attendance, and I declare the meeting closed.